Hi guys, Smash here. So it's been a very long time since I've made YouTube videos, but yeah, whatever, thought I'd give it a go. So this particular video is kind of a very quick introduction to the kind of like Duelyst 2 project that we've kind of got going on. If you're interested, then check out Reddit and try and get a link to the Discord where we talk about this stuff. So this video is predominantly aimed at people who have a little bit of coding experience and are kind of interested in getting involved in the project. So you can see here, very high production standards here. I've written in Paint some of the things that you'll need. So, and I'm not going to cover how to install and set up these things in this video because it takes bloody ages. Plus, there's going to be better guides out there on the internet for that sort of thing anyway. But you are going to need Java version 1.8 installed on your computer. You're also going to need the Java runtime environment or the development kind of kit. Either one will work. And you're going to want 1.8 with that as well. And the reason we're using 1.8 is basically because the application uses something called JavaFX, which is like a library. And it turns out that JavaFX is kind of included in this version of the JRE, but it's not in later versions. So it's just a little bit easier just to use the previous version and get that rather than have to faff around installing it. The other thing I'm going to assume that you have is GitHub Desktop. So this guide is predominantly aimed at Windows people, but if you have Git, that will work just as well. In fact, Git will work better. And also you'll need a GitHub account to work with GitHub Desktop. And then finally, IntelliJ is is kind of the editor I use. I mean, there are other good editors for Java as well, such as Eclipse, but that's what IntelliJ is going to be the one I use in this video. So assuming you have all that installed, the next thing you'll want to do is you'll want to go to the Duelyst kind of repository. Here's the link up here, incidentally. And you can see here that if you're not super familiar with Git, basically all the code is kind of here. Like all the code, literally all the code that we're using for this project will be here in this branch. So what you'll want to do is, if you want to get hold of it, is if you click the clone or download button, copy this link, and then open up GitHub Desktop, go to clone repository, copy and paste that URL in here, and then GitHub will download the library for all the code for you. I've done that before starting this video, so I've just kind of skipped over that bit. And when that happens, you should have essentially two little things here, right? So you've got the current repository which you're in, and then if I hover over it, it gives me the directory for where the code is on my local computer, and you've also got a branch. So if we quickly go to that that directory, you can clearly see that we have all the code kind of here. The other thing to be aware of is that the way kind of GitHub works, or Git, the source control works, is that you'll have a master branch and then you'll have all these other branches, which is where you do the work. So the idea is that master is always going to be working software, right? That's kind of like a general kind of like best practice in software development, that your master branch is always something that works. And then when you want to do new work, when you want to take on a new challenge, you create a new branch, you work in your own branch completely separately from the master, and then once you think you have something that's good, you'll then do something called a merge, and then we'll kind of merge the code in, and then assuming everything all works lovely jubbly, then your new branch will be in the master. And that's kind of what these pull requests are, incidentally, right? So if you see a pull request, that's somebody saying, hey, I believe I've got working code. I want to put this into the master branch. So that's what a pull request is. So once you have that, what you'll want to do is you'll want to load up your editor of choice. So for me, it's IntelliJ. So if I double click that, assuming it bloody works. Come on, you fucker. There we go. And I'm just going to close this quickly because I'll just show you how to do it from scratch, because obviously I've done this multiple times, so it already knows what I want to do. But when you start IntelliJ, you should have a little box that comes up like this. What you'll want to do is hit Import Project. You'll need to navigate to the directory where you downloaded from this GitHub desktop stuff. Wherever it says here is where you kind of want to put in here. And then you click OK. And then the actual project that we're currently building is a Maven project. So Maven is basically just a way to automate building software for Java. So that's all what Maven is going to do. It's just going to build the software for us, which is actually pretty damn useful. So if I hit finish, what will happen is the computer IntelliJ will open the project for us, and we should have something that looks a little bit like this. So the two things to pay attention to are your kind of like your project panel here. So this is all the code kind of, you know, in a folder structure and stuff that you can kind of look through, you know. So if I double click main, for example, here, you know, it suddenly has the code kind of here that you can, you know, play with and delete and change and break and do all fun things. Now, for this particular project, as things currently stand, the two folders that you'll want to pay the most attention to are server and client. You know, things like the resources folder is just kind of like where we have all the art predominantly. That's what's mostly in resources. Tools you can largely ignore. I haven't touched tools yet, and I've been working on this project for what, 10-12 days or something now. The main two are server and client. And what server does is, as you might guess from the name, server is predominantly responsible for sending and receiving requests. And the other thing that the server is responsible for is the game logic, right? The client is the kind of customer-facing bit of the code, where, you know, it's just responsible for all the UI elements, right? So it's like putting monsters on the screen, making things blow up. That's kind of what the client is predominantly responsible for. And then if we click here, if you're not familiar with kind of how Java projects tend to be set up, you'll often see something like this. This kind of like folder structure is quite common. SRC just stands for source, which is essentially your source code. Resources is where you'll put all the you know, graphics and what have you that you want for the project. And then target will be like your compiled code. And then just quickly, if I hit the source here, you can see that we've got three folders here. One's called controller, the other model, and view. So this is a fairly common design pattern, MVC it's called. And basically the idea is it's a separation of concerns, right? So the model is essentially your game logic, it's the engine. And then the view is your presentation layer. And then finally your controller is kind of connecting these things together. So the model doesn't directly talk to the view, and the view doesn't talk to the model. They communicate via the controller. That's how it's supposed to work anyway. Very quick overview of that. So that's kind of like the project panel. The other side of your kind of like development, what do you call it? Code, this thing. Code editor, there you are. I don't know why I struggled to think of that word. But on the other side, you'll see you should have a Maven panel. And the kind of important thing with the Maven panel is that you've got four, or as of making this video, you should have four kind of like of these, I don't know, files, I guess. It looks like a file. In fact, technically, it's a file because actually it's related to these pom.xml files. But maybe that's a bit too much detail for this video. The point is that you should see four things here. And before I forget, there's one other thing we need to do before we start building the software, which is if you go File, Project, Structure, you'll want to go to Project here. And then you can see here we've got Project SDK. We'll want to make sure that 1.8 is selected. So on this particular computer, I have 2 versions of Java installed. I have Java 11 and Java 1.8. We want 1.8. So just set that in case it isn't set. So basically what we need to do now is we need to build the software, right? So if I hit execute maven goal, I'm going to type in clean package. So what the clean does, so this is running 2 commands at the same time. Well, not at the same time, sorry. It's running them sequentially. So the first thing it's going to do is clean, and then it's going to package. So clean is basically going to get rid of all the code I've previously built, and package is then going to recompile the code. So these directories called target will disappear when I use clean. So if we do that, we can see that the computer is starting to do some stuff. It's building the software as we speak. And then once that's done, we should get a little thing here saying success. There you go. We've got some success messages. And you can ignore this error message for now. I haven't been able to fix what the hell this is about, but yeah, you can ignore it for now. Now if we go to in client, if we go to target, we have a jar file. Well, we've got 2 jar files. Again, you can ignore this first one here because it's broken, doesn't work, but the second one, jar with dependencies, is the one that works. So what if we want to play the game? Well, if we want to play the game, we can just right click on this and then click run client. And oh, we've got an error. Oh dear. Oh dear. What's wrong? So this is web development. Sorry, this is just development in general for you. But again, so we might as well just take this as a learning experience. So you can see here that this console is telling us what the computer is doing. So it's successfully created the server. It's started the data center, whatever the hell the data center is. That started apparently. Reading cards was fine. Original cards loaded. Reading stories, because I know this because I've just looked at the code previously, is that stories are to do with like single player campaigns at the moment. So all that stuff worked, and then reading accounts. John Doe account.json is where it screwed up. So we know what the problem is. Well, we don't know what the problem is. We know where the problem area is. So let's see if I can figure out what's going on. So again, I kind of know where to go just because I've been working with this code a little bit. So if we go to accounts, so you can see here that we've got 2 John Doe accounts, and I just happen to think that this is incorrect. This is a bit of a bug. So if I delete that, we'll rebuild the software, although it's probably not necessary for me to do this, but it's just a good habit to rebuild the software. Because if you constantly rebuild the software, then you're always testing the most recent thing that you've changed. So now if we hit the run button, there we go, we're into the game. Now you can see here that I've kind of added this little kind of like helpful hint. So there's an account that we've set up called John Doe with a space in the name with that particular password, and when you log in, it has an account that's got a bunch of cards and also a pre-built deck. So yeah, this is what we currently have so far. So if I hit like collection, it takes a little bit of time to load up the collection because the code itself is actually a bit crappy at the moment. It ends up loading all these images at once, which actually takes quite a lot of memory. So that's something we'll need to address later. You can also see it looks a bit ugly as well on my computer. This bright white background, you can barely read the text there, and yeah, it's a bit ugly, but we're working on it. And then of course the main thing to check out is the play button. So you can see we've got 3 things here. These other 2 things basically don't work at the moment, so ignore them. We have story mode and custom game. We're going to go custom game. So one thing to briefly mention is that we actually found a lot of this code. We haven't written it ourselves, so the people who originally came up with this project. Thought a cool game mode was capture the flag, essentially. I haven't tried this. I've just tried Kill Hero, which is the normal kind of like Duelyst win condition. Load a deck, and we can hit start, and we're in the game, right? So as you might expect, we can move. We can play minions. We've got 3 mana to start with. All our minions. Oh, we've got something that costs 3 mana. You can see that there are lots of visual bugs here, like you can't read the text because the art is in the way, and all the minions have like airdrop as well for some reason. These are all things that we will eventually try and change, but that's how it is as of making this video. So if I kind of run over here, and we've now got, what, 5 mana, so I can just put some big thing there. And we can kind of like run into the center and punch this thing. So as you can see here, we have these weird little artifacts on the board, and then those of you who are pretty observant should probably realize that these are where the mana springs are. So in the next couple of minutes of this video, I'll just quickly show you how we can kind of just delete them, right? Because it's a good way of showing how to think about the code and stuff. So if we kind of hit if we hit finish quickly, oh, is it crash? No, play menu, back, quit game. There we go. So a very good, if you're using this particular editor, a very good idea is to use Control-Shift-F, and this will search the code for you for things, right? So if you happen to, sometimes it's a bit of an art more than it is a science for figuring out what you need to type, what you need to search for in order to get your results. But I happen to know because I've already looked at this before the video. So we actually care about the map, right? And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense that the artifacts will be on the map, right? So if we looked at the bits of code that are to do with a map, we might actually find the answer that we're looking for. So you can see here that we've got maps come up a little bit. We've got some public class compressed game map here. There's a file in resources about the battle music map, okay, stuff like that. There's a hash map. A hash map is obviously a data structure. So this searching is not like super intelligent. It's just finding any instance of the word map, such as in hash map or in like game map or whatever. So if we kind of double click here, you can start to think about the code, right? So for example, just straight away we've come across this, right? Row number and column number, right? Notice it's 5 and 9, right? So that would suggest to me that this is how many columns and how many rows are there on the game. So sometimes you just want to play with things, right? So let's imagine, let's set that to a 5. We then say save all. And now, because I've made a change to the code, I want to come over here and clean and package again. And, sometimes when you make changes like this, you'll just break the code, right? Because the game wasn't designed with 5 columns and 5 rows. So, okay, the game built, but does it run, right? So I've no idea what's going to happen here, because this isn't what I was going to show you, but it might be interesting just to see what the game does. So if I log in, I try and play a game, custom game, kill hero, pre-built deck, and nothing is happening, right? So if we kind of alt-tab out here, we can see that we have an error, which doesn't really surprise me that we get an error, but again, this is about development, so let's see what error we get. We have an array out of bounds exception. So that would probably suggest that somewhere else in the code, the game is assuming that there are like 9 9 columns. And the fact that we've reduced it in size has actually caused this out of bounds error. So that's probably what happened there. So if that's the case, then maybe if I set this to 12, it will actually work. Again, don't know, haven't tried it, but if we do that, we then save. I saved it by hitting Control S. We then rebuild again. And oh, we got an error here. What's the error? Failed to execute clean snapshot. Okay. So I can explain this error. Notice that we've still got the game running, right? So that error is basically telling me that it can't delete the game because we're currently running the game, right? That's what that error is about. So yeah, if I close the game and now run, let's have a little look what happens. So as you can see, a lot of software development is kind of like trial and error, right? You've just got to play around with things, see what happens. We can log in again. Well, so the code built, and now if we try and get into a game, let's see what happens. Does it break? Does it work? No, it breaks. What do we get? We get an out of bounds exception. So yeah, if we were to explore this issue further, we would probably learn that other bits of the code are expecting, the number of columns and the number of rows to be this specific thing, and it hasn't been generalized, which kind of suggests that the code isn't so great. But you know what? It was a student project, and yeah. Anyway, this wasn't even the thing I was supposed to show you. So the thing I was going to show you was how to get rid of the artifacts, right? So once again, let's search map. Game map, let's see. There we go. This is what I wanted to show you. So if you look here at this code, you've got 0, 4, 2, 5, and 4, 4. These happen to actually be the artifacts in question. So if we have a quick look where we are, we're in something called game map. Look at this. Were we here just a minute ago? I've just seen the column and row number here. I might have been in this function a moment ago and didn't realize it. Oh, no. Okay, I tell a lie. So here we are. This is probably why our previous experiments with changing the rows and columns didn't work, is because notice that row number and column number are defined in two different places. So this is actually bad software practice, right? If you should only define something once. Because if you define something once, then you know, and then refer back to it, you can avoid situations where, like in one place the number of rows is 5, and then in the other place the number of rows is 6, and the music stops. Let's play that again quickly. So that's what probably happened there. But yeah, so it's actually this thing here that is setting where the artifacts are. So if I set this one, for example, to 0, 0, and we comment this out like so, and then come over here and then start rebuilding. So obviously when you make a change, you should obviously start thinking, and while we're waiting for it to actually build, we might as well think about what we expect to happen. And the answer is, of course, well, we would now expect there to be only one artifact on the game because we've commented out these two other artifacts. And the other thing we would perhaps expect is for them to be in a different place, right? So if I, where am I going now? Let's hit run client snapshot. John Doe. QRE, log in, and then if we kind of start playing a game, let's see what happens. Go to kill hero, and there you are. Like the artifacts are not here, but there's one in the corner. So I thought I'd show you this just because it's kind of like a neat kind of somewhat simple explanation of how you can kind of get in this project. Like not everything in the code is like super complicated. Sometimes you can actually develop features and improve the game just by deleting stuff, right? We haven't done anything particularly complicated to figure out how to get rid of those annoying artifacts. So perhaps the final thing to do in this video is show you how to commit a change, right? So we've kind of got this, we're commenting all this out, we're going to save, and then we're going to come over to GitHub desktop. So Git is, I don't want to kind of like explain too much about how Git works, but basically the way source control, and obviously Git is a version of source control, basically the way it works is it keeps on monitoring the differences between files as they change over time. So in this particular instance, we've only changed one file. We've only worked on one file, and here in this panel here, it tells us what we've done. So the red means deletions, and the green with these pluses means additions. So it's basically saying that we've replaced these 3 lines of code and we've added these 3 lines of code. So that's what's happened. So this is actually useful work. We don't actually want those silly little artifacts in the game. So what I can do is I can commit this change. And you'll see here that if I try and commit it, it tells me that master is a protected branch. So we don't want to commit to master. We actually want to commit to a separate branch, and then later on we can merge in to the master. So if I hit switch branches, we hit new branch. Let's give it a good name. So let's call it delete central artifacts, delete mana artifacts, something like that. That's perhaps a reasonable explanation of what this code change does. So we're creating the branch, and then we also want to give a description here as well. So let's give it a good description. Good descriptions are always a good, good idea, good practice, because it then means that other developers and other people, potentially yourself in months' time, can kind of like read these comments and understand what the hell was going on. So if I write something like deleted the 3, if I can type the 3 artifacts in the center of the board where mana springs should be. Okay, and then as you can see here, it's kind of telling us that we're going to commit this to the deleted mana artifacts branch. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to hit this publish branch button. So what the publish branch does is it kind of creates a on GitHub, if we now go to GitHub quickly, is it'll add the branch to the repository, which means other people involved in this project can download your branch and try it and test it and so on. So if I hit refresh here quickly, you can see that there's 13 branches. If I click here, sure enough, there's the deleted mana artifacts branch, which I can now click on, and here's the code for that particular branch. And yeah, that's kind of like how you can work on this project if you want. Obviously, the Trello boards, if you have access to them, have all the tasks that you can kind of get involved with, and the Discord has obviously a lot of information as well. But yeah, hopefully this video has given you a fairly decent kind of overview of how you can get involved in the coding aspects of this project if you want to. And with that, I will say goodbye. So take care, guys, and have fun.